Good evening and welcome to episode 317 of the Gersnet Podcast. I'm John McCallum. Gersnet Podcast, of course, is the independent Rangers podcast made by fans for fans where the content is free. It's not just a podcast we have here at Gersnet. There's a friendly forum, there's articles, there's social media, and there's a great history archive. If you're first time listening to the pod tonight, we would encourage you to subscribe, share on social media if you enjoy it, and of course you can let us know what you think in the comments. Frankie will be looking at them throughout. Now on tonight's show, we'll have a look back at yesterday's 5-0 win over Hearts. We'll talk about Cyril Dessers, Connor Goldson, what was our best goal yesterday, have a chat about Benfica, and just what does make a great Rangers captain. And if we've got time at the end, we'll have a look ahead at our next match with Kilmarnock on Wednesday night. Now, before we do any of that, I have to have a quick mention of our sponsors, Forrest Precision Engineering. They're a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company, and they've been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for many years. We're delighted they're backing our pod, and you can find out more about them at forestprecisioneng.com. You can also visit the Forrest Precision Executive Lounge, which is a stunning hospitality area in the main stand. And if you'd like more information on that, you can email the club via hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Okay. I'll just introduce my guests. Now, I was in Five Guys in St Vincent Street in the middle of town earlier on today, and I bumped into Callum McGregor, Graham Shinney and Andy Robertson. And Andy Robertson had actually just finished playing in a cup final at Wembley, but he'd made it there quite quickly. And he approached me and he said, John, just before we order our milkshakes, who are the guests on Gersnet tonight? And when I told him it was Ross Bennett and Scott Bradley, well, I got to tell you, they were so excited. And apparently they never miss a show. So they were both in good spirits. You guys, how's things tonight? You must be enjoying your weekend, Dave. And I don't know about you, Scott. I don't know about you, Scott. I don't know where you live, but I know that Ross doesn't live nearby, so he hasn't perhaps enjoyed the kind of spring-like weekend we've had in Glasgow.
No, I'm fantastic, mate. And I will say this as well: there's no five guys in Clydebank, that's for sure. So
there are five guys, but they're trying to steal your car. Yeah.
I will say as well, John. It was quite funny to see the press conference come on, got asked about that, and he was like, basically just shot it down. He was like, "Yeah, a lot of nonsense. Just don't believe everything that you read."
That's it. And Ross, are you well, sir?
I'm very well. Do you know, I was in Glasgow this weekend for the game, so I
you did get to enjoy
to experience the tropical conditions that we had.
Listen, let's just start with the game. And Ross, I'm going to start with yourself. The match was only a couple of minutes old, and it's one of these games. I think before the match, a few of us were thinking, okay, this will be a test. Hearts are in great form, and they really have been in great form. You have to acknowledge that the job that's been getting done there in the last 2-3 months, and I think going into it, we all probably had some trepidation. So within a couple of minutes, we were already 1-up thanks to a beautiful strike again from Diomande. A left foot hit this time, unlike his one the week before against St Johnstone. We've been lacking a goal-scoring midfielder since your favourite Scott Arfield left the club. Have we finally found one, Ross? Is he the answer to that?
Well, he certainly looks a good signing so far. Is he a goal scorer? He certainly looks like it. I mean, I think the way that modern football is going, 15 years ago, you'd have two up top, a big man, a little man, and play two strikers. Then that's kind of morphed into you play one up top and then two boys out wide. Is it a 4-5-1 or is it a 4-3-3? But it almost seems that we're progressing into your striker being less and less important for being the sole provider of goals. And there's that kind of old cliche that Pep would play with a team of 10 midfielders if he could, and your midfielders have to be able to do anything. They would do everything. And I think that's a big part of why we didn't sign a striker in this window, is because Clermont is going to build a team that has goals from all over the park. We had 3 new signings score yesterday. I know one of them is ostensibly a striker in Fabio Silva, but he's not really a striker, is he? He's kind of an attacking utility player in my mind. So whether Dio is a goal-scoring midfielder or not, in the mould of Scott Arfield, it probably doesn't matter, because I actually believe now, we got 5 goals from 4 different goal scorers yesterday. We're getting goals from all over the park now, and it's absolutely fantastic to see. So look, yesterday, the build up to yesterday, it was all talk about how Rangers are facing the form team in Scotland. Ignoring the fact that we are the form team in Scotland, of course. Rangers are facing the form team in Scotland, and it's a banana skin, and this is where we'll slip up. And that Hearts are in the title race. Have you heard this? Hearts are in a title race, according to Mr. E. Cameron. So, yeah, there was a lot of talk about how yesterday was going to be difficult for us. And, does that build nerves? Maybe. Does it build anxiety? Probably. What a way to stifle that anxiety, and by rifling one into the bottom corner from 20 yards after 80 seconds. So, as you say, I live a little way away, so it's a couple of flights for me to get to games. And that always, for me, puts a bit of pressure on things that you're spending upwards of a couple of £100 to come to a game. But I think when you score after 80 seconds, that takes away all of that pressure, all of that stress. And it was, quite frankly, it was a wonderful day.
Yeah, the great Blue Dell on Gersnet pointed out that in the warm-up, in his warm-up before the game, that he had been doing that very move, hitting them from the edge of the box, just taking it on his left foot and hitting it into the corner of the edge of the box. He'd actually been doing that during his warm-up. So clearly Hearts weren't watching the warm-up. It was a joyful start to the game. It was a fantastic strike. He was set up by Cortez for that goal, Scott. The first one, and then obviously Cortez scored the second one himself. It was a flowing counter-attack. Sterling winning the ball, and we could talk about just about every player on the team tonight if we had the time. But let's focus on Cortez for a minute. Sterling winning the ball, Lawrence getting the ball played to him. He managed to burst through, and I think initially you thought he's going to give it to Dessers, and he missed him out. Played a wonderful ball across, and Cortez, I think the word I used was he caressed it into the bottom corner. It was a beautiful first time hit with Sima, who. I remember when Seema got injured thinking, where's the goals coming from? That's a big miss for us. And the truth is we've barely missed them. It's remarkable. But with Seema and now Matondo as well injured, there's going to be a lot asked of Cortez in the coming weeks. You've now seen him 2-3 times. What's your impressions of Cortez, and how did you feel he got on yesterday? And how much will that goal help him in terms of fitting into the team?
Oh, honestly, John, be massive. Of course, it was a lovely finish, as you said. And so far, I know it's early days, right? But he's been impressive. He's not put a foot wrong so far. And obviously, he's settling in quite well. He's skillful, he's quick. And as you were saying, with Seema being out, he's been the ideal replacement. But of course, as you said, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him, and we're going to need to rely on him, obviously in the coming weeks. But see, when it comes to, when we've got games wrapped up, that's when to take him off. We can't keep him on for a whole 90 minutes or whatever, unless we have to. But if the game's wrapped up, we need to take him off, because if he's out, the last thing I want to do, with the greatest respect to Scott Wright, is I do not want Scott Wright playing in that left-hand side. That traumatises me. So, yeah, he has started off well. And that's, in my opinion, the best solution going forward is when the game's wrapped up, that's when to take him off. But yeah, there's something about him. He's like, with that finish as well, it was such a smooth finish, and it was it was perfect. And that would be a massive confidence boost for him going forward as well. Because as we all know, when you come to one of those from teams, you need to hit the ground running, and he started off very well so far.
Yeah, and of course, if he does get injured, we'll just simply play Sterling as a left winger, probably as a right winger at the same time, and just get him to play the two positions, and it'll be okay. Yeah, I've been really impressed with Cortez. It's funny. I think we were talking just when they were signed, and I'd made the point to that I thought that Cortez actually might kind of struggle to get up to speed, because he hadn't played a lot of football in France. He hadn't really had a run in the games. I thought he might be a little rusty, and he might just take and I once again demonstrated publicly my lack of football knowledge, because he has absolutely hit the ground running, and he's fitted into the style of play so quickly. He seems to know where his teammates are. His cut inside for the first goal. And again, you're wondering, where's he going? And suddenly there's a player opened up in a ton of space, and he finds him right away. And he did that 2 or 3 times during the game. You don't know if he's going to go outside you, he's going to come inside of you. He's got both of those. And it's quite exciting. It's been a while since I've been as excited by a wide player that Rangers have signed. So we'll see where it comes with it. Ross, Cyril Dessers. So he made it 3 just before half time. It was actually a really nice goal. Wonderful cross. Come pass from Suter, and a really nice finish. A cushioned finish. It was actually a really nice goal. He had 2 chances to score before that. One where he kind of ran from his own half, carried the ball into their box. Managed to kind of come inside. Wrong footed defenders to get a shot away. Not the strongest shot, but he did okay with that. Goalkeeper saved it, and then had another one where he had a header that he really should have scored. It was actually a poor miss. And then of course he scores the goal. He does score, and then he scores another one just after half time. And the one just after half time was a proper striker's goal. Was just moving first, and it's the kind of goal I like to see strikers score. Whereas it's great to see the kind of goals that Diomande and then Cortez scored. I also want to see somebody who's scoring goals inside the 6-yard box. There are times when he still looks ungainly. There's times when he looks slow. I still say he doesn't use his physique nearly enough. But I've been a critic of Dessers from fairly early on this season. And he's just scoring goals now. And, do all of his critics now need to eat their words?
No, because I think all of the criticism has been and was justified. We all saw some things with Cyril Dessers that we wish we had never seen, and that includes yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't know if the header that you're referring to. I don't know if it's the one where he was actually flagged offside, but the ball kind of popped to him, and he, from about 6 yards out, headed it to Xander Clark rather than
no, that one. No, the one where he headed it past the post.
Right. So there are multiple things that we could talk about with him.
It's trying to figure out which miss we're talking about. Yes.
Not being a great striker. So all of the criticism has been justified, and yet also for as much criticism as he gets, which is a huge amount, he's had an unbelievable amount of criticism in the first 6 months, let's say, in his time at Rangers. He deserves equally as much praise, because he's the most confusing and bizarre player I've ever seen. I was probably last on the show about 8 weeks ago, and I kind of spoke of my admiration for the guy. I honestly think that's turned from admiration into adoration. I am obsessed with him. I've got such an infatuation with the guy, and I love the guy's character. I really, really do. I think to go through all of the criticism, he's not going to be immune to it. He's not going to be blinded to it. He will have had. Even if he's not picking up the Record or the Sun and reading what they're saying, he'll have had folk confront him, in the street or in the shops or wherever it is, to tell him how bad he is. That's the nature of Glasgow. And
Ryan Jack was probably one of them. Yeah.
Not true. He's never once hid. He's never once shied away. He's been called on more than we would like, with the injuries to Roof and Danilo and Sima. And yeah, he's scoring goals, as you say. He's scoring goals. He's scoring good goals. That was a great goal, that first one yesterday.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the control on that is outstanding. So I am just full of praise for the guy. And let it go back to the point I made earlier. If goals are coming from elsewhere on the pitch, it does relieve some of the pressure on him. It means that when he does miss, because he's missing a lot, the number of chances that we create is extraordinary. He's missing a lot of them. And yet, there's something just infectious about him. There's something where I looked at the odds before the game yesterday, and the bookies aren't daft. The bookies had him a little over evens to score any time. So call it 40 to 45% likely that he was going to score at any point in the game yesterday, which is pretty nailed on. It's pretty good. It was twice as likely that he would score than Lawrence Shankland would score. So all of the data and all of the analytics that the bookies are putting into their pricing Having worked for the bookies in the past, I can tell you that's a huge amount of data that goes into that. Statistically suggested it would be twice as likely that Dessers would score compared to the guy that people were foaming at the mouth for us to sign. He's an enigma. He's not the best footballer we've seen at Ibrox, and yet he's captured me and he's captured a lot of people, and keep doing it.
He plays with a smile on his face.
He does,
which is you can't help but warm to him because of that. He has a smile on his face. He seems like a big, good-natured guy. I don't know if he is, but that's the impression you get from him. And he plays with a smile on his face. And love the fact that he's scored goals, the fact that he's clearly enjoying his football, having, like you say, had a difficult start. That will help. And you made an interesting point there about he's missing chances. And I do wonder if part of the reason he's now scoring is that we are creating so many more chances. Perhaps in the early part of the season, he was maybe only getting 1 or 2 chances a game, and you really then notice when he misses them, when they don't come off. Whereas now he's getting 4 or 5 a game, he's sticking at least one of them away. It's interesting, and believe me, I am not comparing them. Okay, before anyone phones in or anyone pulls me up, I am not comparing them. But I remember Ali McCoist in the days when, prior to Souness arriving, but even after Souness arrived, first few seasons after Souness arrived, McCoist needed, that was the thing, that was the criticism that was always made about McCoist, was he needed more chances than other strikers to score, that, he would miss a few before he'd score. And people would make the point, he needs to be in the position to miss. He keeps putting himself in the right position, the goals will come. And there's a bit of that with Dessers just now. He's in the position there was one in the second half, we may mention it later, but there's one in the second half where Tavernier turned into Messi and just suddenly went down and then stuck it across the 6-yard. And how he missed it, I'll never missed the ball completely. But the point is, he was there to miss it. As ridiculous as that might sound. And I think that's probably as much of what Clement is trying to get him to do. Is look, just keep being there and the goals will come. And I'm really pleased. I am pleased for him because I was a critic and I still am. I'm still not convinced by him, but I'm delighted he's making the words.
I think that's right, John. And there's the cliche of he's not an out-and-out goal scorer, but his movement is brilliant. His movement's fantastic, and it's quite an easy point to make. But that first goal yesterday, the majority of strikers would have been offside there because they'd have had to fight for an advantage. So not just the movement and the vision to see what's coming, but the discipline to stay onside and still nip in ahead of the defender is really, really sharp and is really, really clever. So I actually think we're in a fortunate position that, as you say, we create so many chances, it's okay to miss a couple. By the way, how many goals would a fit Alfredo Morelos get in this side? It would be extraordinary. But we are where we are, which is top of the league, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Yes, I think we all are, to be fair. I think we all are. Scott, it was mentioned earlier, our other January signing, Silva, came on. For the first time, but certainly if it's not the first time, we've not seen much of him and Dessers on at the same time. We had 10-15 minutes with the two of them on. So Dessers continued to lead the line and Silva playing a slightly different role, slightly deeper role, before Dessers went off and he kind of went up. And what we've tended to see under Clement is one replace the other. That one goes off, the other one comes on, and one starts, the other one. He usually uses the two of them in the same role. So it was interesting to see Silva in that role. I found it. The game was pretty much won at that point, but it was interesting to see him in that role against a team who have been in pretty decent form, albeit they got hammered yesterday. What did you make of Silva in that role, and what do you make of Silva now you've had a chance to see him a fair bit now?
Yeah, so I thought he was fine in that role, to be honest, John. I thought obviously it worked quite well. Obviously, Silva got a goal as well, obviously, playing in that role. And I like how Clement is trying to do things different, especially when the game was effectively done, as you said. And obviously under previous managers, they wouldn't really do something like that. So I can admit, it's definitely refreshing to see. But in terms of Silva so far, I was a fan of his right from the get-go because he offers something different. And I remember when I was last on the podcast, you and I were talking about this, where Silva, just his work rate is tremendous. Yeah. And one thing that annoyed me with the Rangers support was when we didn't, obviously we signed Silva, right? But the Rangers support wanted another striker, but they were acting like it was like, oh, that's it, crisis. We haven't said another striker. It's like meltdown, all this kind of stuff. Absolute nonsense. But Silva's been brilliant so far, and yet he offers something different. And it was brilliant seeing him get that goal yesterday as well. It was, by the way, lovely finish to that goal, tremendously well. And I don't know how long we will have Silva for, because obviously we've got him on loan until the end of the season, but I do probably expect him to go back down south. But
you don't think the directors will pony up 35 million for him, no?
Well, we'll wait and see.
Sack the board.
Sack the board, that's it. No, but he's been good. He has been good. And I remember I said it to Craig as well, like Big Craig Ray. I said to him, he'll also be watching, shout out to the big man. I said to him, there was, when we signed Silva, I was like, okay, right from the get-go, we had to get a striker in. That's what we've done. Brought in Silva. But now, the manager's got a bit of a headache, because he's like, Dessers is on form, he's scoring goals, right? He's proving a lot of people wrong. Silva's been playing well. So it's like, it's a nice headache to have. But what does the manager do here? Does he go with two strikers? Does he change it up a bit? I can't see that. I do think we'll always still go with just one striker up top, and I would want us to do that, because why fix something that isn't broken? But yeah, that is interesting though. Obviously, going back to what you said about like how it was like he changed up towards the end of the game, having Dessers and Silva play together. So who knows? Like, could that be something that could happen in the future? You never know. But yeah, I thought it was quite nice to see.
I think it might have to happen in the future, because Cantwell's out for a few weeks, which is a length of time that might be 5 weeks or might be 2 weeks, and I guess at this stage they maybe just don't know. Which means that Lawrence is our kind of recognised kind of playmaker, that kind of deep lying forward, and Lawrence, as we all know, is hasn't had his problems to seek when it comes to injuries. So there is, asking Lawrence to play 2 games a week might not be possible. So Silva might have to play in the hole, if you like. And of course, to add to the manager's pleasant headache was the return of Roof. And I didn't know if I was going to see that. It's interesting. Craig and I spoke, the last time I was on, Craig and I spoke about, Roof. I don't think Roof's ever going to be able to come back and play 90 minutes.
I agree.
But if he can come back and play 30, then that's a great guy to have coming off your bench. And it was, so pleasing to see him come off the bench. And if he can contribute that between now and the end of the season, that really does lift that squad, because that he's a player of quality. Anyway,
sorry, can I just say one thing, John, as well?
Of course you can.
I do feel as though we've definitely got our value for money with him, right? Because he's contributing so many big games, right? And in my opinion, even when Morelos was at the club in his prime, I thought Kamaru was the best striker at the club. Yeah. But his downfall is it's just been injuries, and it's a shame, because he is a great player. But in my opinion, Rangers are at that stage now where we cannot afford to keep players who on the books are always injured. And same goes with Ryan Jack as well. Love Ryan Jack, tremendous footballer, but we're at that stage where we can't afford to keep players who are always injured on the books.
I mean, it depends what they're being paid. In the end,
this will be a big earner.
Yeah, I would say so. Yes, I mean, I suppose it would depend on his next contract, but anyway, I don't disagree with what you said. Look, I'm going to ask both of you this. This is the hardest question I'm going to ask you tonight. Which one of yesterday's goals was the best? Ross, what did you think? Justify your decision.
Crikey, which one was the best? Oscar Cortez was the best. First time finish. Out of reach of the goalkeeper.
Nice build up as well. Nice move.
Nice build up play. Good pass from Lawrence. Honestly, God, it could be any of the first three. Really, I would say not 4, because it was just it was inside the box and a wee bit scrappy. 5, the keeper could have done better. Good finish, good goal. Keeper could have done better. So any of the first 3, I would say that Cortez pips it for me.
Scott.
I'm exactly the same as Ross. Cortez all day long. I thought that was a beautiful finish, like smooth as anything, and 100% agreement with Ross there.
It's interesting that, because I'm going for Silva. I thought that the way that Lundstrom, the no-look pass completely took out the defence. And Silva's first time hit, I think you're being harsh on the goalkeeper there. I think he just hit it with such power and venom. It was a beautiful goal, but it's hard to pick one, and that's the beauty of that game. 5 good goals, 4 of them absolutely out of this world goals. Ross, talking about goals, a lot has been made of Lawrence Shanklin recently, who we mentioned. He's been in good form. I think you have to say that. He has been in very good form for Hearts this season. He was linked with us. He looks unlikely to sign a new contract with Hearts, so the chances are he will probably be moving on in the summer. He hit the post yesterday. Quite a nice header. Game was lost at that point, but from his perspective, the game was lost. But apart from that, I don't think he did a great deal. And while tonight we're largely going to be focusing on, and I think everybody was focusing on the attack. A 5, to win 5-0 against third place, you always look at the forward players and talk about them. We kept another clean sheet yesterday. And Connor Goldson played his 300th game for Rangers, which is a proper landmark. 300 games for any club. That's something that has passed a little under the radar, and I think it just deserves us to take kind of 5 minutes to talk about it. So Goldson, along with Butland, Cav, and I think Lundstrom, I think they're the 4 players that Clement always picks. Every other player in that team doesn't know if they're going to be playing next week. I'd say those 4 are. They're pretty much guaranteed to start. And Clement's clearly nobody's full. So there's, he clearly sees something in the 4 of them. And Goldson has been almost an ever-present in the Rangers team since he signed. Is he one of these players that we just take a little for granted, Ross? And just how important is Goldson to this current Rangers side?
I think he's very important in that, as you say, there aren't many players, and they were talking about this on BBC Scotland after the game yesterday. Is that Clement does chop and change a lot. He's I think they added up the cumulative match-to-match changes that he's had since he come in, and it's 60 plus, whereas Rodgers is 40 plus in the same period. So particularly in a back 4, you need some consistency. You need some, certainty week on week. Goldson's the guy to provide that, undoubtedly. So he's very important. I think he's having possibly his poorest season, or maybe it just looks that way because everyone else is excelling at the moment. But
he's having his poorest season.
I think he has been questionable, and I think he has been. You could lay some blame for a number of goals this season at his door. I actually think. Look, I'm not saying he's not our best centre-half, because he is still our best centre-half. I think that all of our centre-halves have a mistake in them, actually. I know it makes me look a fool saying that when you look at our defensive record this season, which is superb. But I actually think I've seen him play better. And I think, I'm looking at his stats now, as you say, 300 games for Rangers. He's 31. He's not going to get a big move, so he's kind of here for the maybe not the remainder of his career, but he's certainly here now for his best years. Look, he's been a phenomenal servant to us. I don't know. I get a feeling that he's not quite hitting the heights that he's hitting in other seasons for Rangers, and I don't mean that to sound a way to say that sounds less critical, because I don't mean any criticism. He's got very high standards, and he's clearly a leader. Whenever, and it probably happens every 9 to 12 months, we as a fan base start getting critical of James Tavernier and saying he shouldn't be captain because he's not a good defender. We then say it should be Goldson or it should be Lundstrom. He's clearly a leader, Connor Goldson. He's clearly well thought of, not just by the players, but by the string of managers that we've had since he was signed by. Who was he signed by? Would that have been 2018? Steven Gerrard, probably early Gerrard signing. So the managers that we've had since then have clearly all rated him, and I really do rate him. But I do think that he has a tendency to make a mistake, whether that's being beaten by a ball over the top or he's being out-muscled in a one-on-one battle with a striker. The Aberdeen goal that we conceded recently, I think, is a good example of that, where it was kind of a long ball over and stuff, and Majowski beats him to it when he really had no right to do so. So there are situations, he's not impeccable. I think that's what I'm trying to say. But look, yeah, very dependable, solid leader, and he's been a wonderful servant to Rangers.
Harsh stuff there, Ross. I've got to tell you, wasn't what I expected to hear from you, but fair enough. Listen, before we move on, let me just talk to you guys quickly about Football Prizes, who are another one of the companies who help us put Gersnet together. And their prize just now is a signed and dedicated Rangers shirt from Jack Butland. It's an extremely rare opportunity, and you can win this for just £3.95. And the way Football Prizes work is they have a limited number of tickets, so your chances of winning are significantly higher. And it's, as I said, it'll be signed, and he'll sign your name. We are the people, Jack Butland. So please go over to Football Prizes. It's footballprizes.co.uk. Look for the Jack Butland competition, and very good luck with that. Okay. You mentioned Tav there. In fact, it's almost like you've been reading the agenda to help me out here. But we obviously had this quite strange situation during the week, and it is strange. I mentioned Five Guys at the start in my attempt at humour and levity as we begin the show, because there was this really quite odd comment from Gordon Parks on a radio show. Now, but before I level too much criticism, I didn't hear the whole show. I simply have heard the kind of 1 minute snippet that's been doing the rounds on social media. So he perhaps went on and caveated what he said or something. I don't know, but I heard his I heard the bit I heard, and he was critical of James Tavernier, and specifically around his captaincy. And the term he used, he told this really very odd story about seeing. Frankly, it sounded barely plausible that he'd seen James Tavernier going into Five Guys. And if anyone doesn't know what Five Guys is like a kind of fancy hamburger joint.
I wouldn't call it fancy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it fancy, mate.
An expensive hamburger joint then, because I reckon the reason that he can go in there and not be recognised is that most of the people in there are still standing looking at their receipt, wondering how they just get shafted 12 quid for some chips and a milkshake. And they're just so stunned they don't realise who's around them, and he can go in there. But anyway, his point, which was, as I said, a slightly strange one, he said the Rangers captain lacked an aura. So I'm not entirely sure what that means. But he compared them unfavourably to John Gregg, Richard Gough, and Barry Ferguson, which I'm always interested when people do that. They are three great Rangers captains, and they're seen as three great Rangers captains because he captained Rangers at times when things went quite well. But John Gregg in particular also captained Rangers while Celtic won 9 in a row. He captained Rangers while they couldn't win anything, frankly. But what's interesting about Gregg is that he captained Rangers to league titles. He captained Rangers to trebles. He captained Rangers to the European Cup Winners' Cup triumph, whilst also captaining Rangers to periods where you were very much second best in the city. So he did a bit of both, as did Barry Ferguson. Richard Gough, not so much. Richard Gough, pretty much a success all the way through. Really what I just wanted to discuss was, and Ross touched upon it there, that Tav is not immune from criticism from the Rangers support. So just how important is Tavernier to us just now, Scott? And more importantly, he's the captain of the club. Should he be? Is there any validity in in that criticism?
Absolutely none. Like, honestly, see when I seen the clip, I didn't even reply to it or anything. I thought it was embarrassing. It's like it was a real poor attempt of getting engagement, but it was the bad engagement. It wasn't like engagement where it was like, oh, I want to check that show out. It's like, no, that's just pathetic. I thought it was just classless, if I'm being honest, right? And obviously the fact he made it up is even more pathetic. But in my opinion, James Tavernier, right, this is a bold thing I'm going to say here, right? In my opinion, right, I think James Tavernier is the the best right back to ever play in Scottish football, honestly. James Tavernier, in my opinion, as well, is a Rangers legend. The criticism that he gets is ridiculous. Like, even from our own support at times where they try to single him out for certain things. For example, if we're struggling in a game or we concede a goal, they always try to single Tav out after a bad result. I don't understand it. Tavernier captain Rangers to 55, in my opinion, the most important league title in Rangers history. Captain Rangers to a Europa League final, finished top goal scorer in that competition. Also captain Rangers to a League Cup and a Scottish Cup win. And the thing is, with Tavernier, and Mark Warburton told me this as well, where he's not a captain that's going to be in your face and will shout at you like a kind of Roy Keane type of character. He's a guy that leads by example. That's what Tavernier does. In the League Cup final, when we were struggling, we needed a goal. Tavernier took the game by the scruff of the neck and got the goal. And that's thing, he never hides. When things are tough, he always wants to make something happen. And we're very lucky to have someone like James Tavernier at the club, because once he's gone, people won't realise how important he actually was for the club, and they won't understand how lucky we were to have someone like James Tavernier. And I think the guy's just a complete class act, honestly, John. I think he's brilliant, and it just shows you as well where he's been here for about 9 years, and to go from playing in the Championship to the player he is now is remarkable, and it just shows you the kind of model professional he is.
I'm not even sure it was the Championship. I think it might even have been League One or something like that. He was actually with Wigan at the time.
Signing left from Warburton's era.
But Ross, you're clearly going to slate Tavernier now and suggest that perhaps he's been responsible for most of our goals, the ones that certainly that Goldson wasn't responsible for. No, seriously, Ross. I mean, what do you make of Tavernier as the club captain? Does he have what it takes to be a Rangers captain?
I always preferred Lee Hodgson. I think Tavernier's brilliant. I really do. I think he's class. I think he's absolutely class. And I'm trying to do a wee bit of maths in my head. I think 6 Rangers managers have made him captain. Right? So Warburton, let's count Murty, Gerrard.
Was he captain under Warburton? I thought Gerrard made him captain.
It was Wallace, yeah.
I thought Gerrard made him captain.
All right.
It was Gerrard, yeah. Gerrard made him captain. Like, obviously, he's interim captain under Murty when Wallace was out. Then, obviously, Gerrard made him official captain in the summer 2018.
So let's start with Murty and Gerrard, Gio, Beale, and now
who's our current manager?
Who's our That's shocking.
It's a long day.
It's a very long day. It's been a long weekend, I tell you that. I was a very long weekend. And now obviously under Philippe Clement. So there have been a number of some great, some not so great Rangers managers who have seen fit to make this guy captain. He is clearly well liked amongst the players. He is delivering some outstanding numbers. His return is exquisite. I'm sure you'll have heard the same stat that a couple of weeks ago we scored the 1,000th goal since we signed James Tavernier, and he either scored or assisted 247 of them. Let's be generous and round that up to 250. Since signing, our right back has scored or assisted a quarter of our goals. That is mental. Yeah. That is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, he's not that good of a defender. I actually think it's just a lie. Look at our defensive record. It's just not true. He's got a mistake in him. He's got a defensive mistake in him. I think he's exquisite. I think he's a Rangers legend. And I tell you what, I wish I wish someone in the media would take responsibility to call out their colleagues who lie. This was a lie. He's made it up. He's not seen, because I think that the point that he was making was he walked into Five Guys an hour after a game, and Clement has been on record now to say that that's nonsense because he was still at the fucking stadium. This is in the same week that we had Alan Stubbs saying that Clement, it looks good for a guy who's not won anything yet.
I know.
Call them out. Why are they allowed to get away with lying? So, yeah. But,
it's interesting. Scott said, it wouldn't necessarily, he was surprised at this because it's not necessarily, it wouldn't make him want to listen to the show. I don't think the show's aimed at us, Scott. No. I don't think that's a show that's meant to be attractive. I think that's very firmly aimed at. It has its audience in mind, and they may well be interested in what Alan Stubbs and Gordon Park say.
God help them.
I don't think we are necessarily the target audience for that. But look, we've all heard criticism of Tavernier over the years. No Rangers captain is exempt from criticism, has ever been exempt. Being the Rangers captain is, you are in the spotlight at that point. You are probably then, amongst the most high-profile players in the country. A lot is expected of you. A lot of Rangers captains are simply judged on silverware and how much silverware they've won. And I think Tavernier would be the first to admit he hasn't won enough as Rangers captain. But his own personal, the way he conducts himself, you touch wood, you never hear of him away from the ground. He seems to live a fairly quiet life away from the ground. He's clearly got the confidence of every manager who's managed him, whereas he's been at Rangers. You guys made that point. And he's popular with the players. The point that's never made, and I'm pleased it's never made because it's certainly not an issue, is he's also the first black captain of Rangers. That's a point that's never, I've never heard anyone mention that. Because let's be honest, there are people out there who are quite happy to criticise the Rangers support and suggest that we're somewhere to the right of the Ku Klux Klan, and we all know it's utter nonsense. But there's a lot of people out there, and Rangers have had a black captain now for 6 years, and I've literally never heard it mentioned. Never heard anyone take any mention. The fact he's also English. It's never even mentioned. He's only ever judged on the football and what he does as a Rangers captain. And I found it a very, very strange thing to say. Look, I'll move us on. The other kind of big event that happened during the week was the Europa League draw. We were drawn with Benfica of Portugal. We've played a few Portuguese teams in Europe over the last few years. Generally speaking, we've done okay. We drew Benfica. What was that? 3 years ago, 4 years of COVID? Was it during COVID?
5 years ago, yeah.
I think we had 2 draws with them. The draw in Lisbon was annoying because that game we should have won. I think it was Darwin Núñez of Liverpool that they brought on who kind of turned that game. That will be a difficult. There was only ever going to be difficult games at this stage. That will be a difficult game. They're in pretty decent form, Benfica. I didn't hear how they've got on tonight, but I know they were joint top of the league, as you kind of expect. Benfica, not only are they a kind of good team just now, but they're a wonderful name. They are a team with a storied history in Europe, a team who have won. They've won European trophies in the past. They have a great record of bringing through players. Ross, were you happy with that draw? And my kind of secondary point was this kind of early kickoff that's been thrust upon us. Will that have any effect, do you think?
Any effect on the players? No. Or on the tie? I doubt it. Effect on fans? Absolutely. I think it's a real shame. I don't know enough about the internal workings of UEFA and or TNT Sports and BT and whoever else they broadcast through. I've seen some people sort of saying, well, we were due an early kickoff. Maybe, but also, I don't know, so maybe I'm making this up, but I would guess that the English teams in this competition are all having their home games at 8 p.m. So
I wondered if it was because Sporting Lisbon are also in the trophy tournament, and I wondered if maybe it was actually Portuguese TV that had said, look, we want one early and one late, and there's only one team in Scotland still in Europe, so it doesn't matter when they play.
Very true. Could well be. So I think it's a shame, more than sort of saying it's a disgrace. I think it's a shame for fans that will struggle to get there or take time off work or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I was reading earlier, there's an issue around supporters buses.
Yeah,
because a lot of the buses are used for school runs and won't be available at that time of day and that type of thing. So it'll definitely be an inconvenience.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think it's going to have an impact on the players on the team or on the outcome of the tie. Benfica as a draw, I'm happy with it. To be honest with you, there weren't many teams that I'd have liked. I think
there's no gimmies now.
No, and there's a lot of the weakest teams on paper. Sparta Prague, we kind of know all about them, and they're no mugs. Nope. Karabag, yeah, probably a weaker team, but the context and the geography makes it an unattractive tie going to Baku a few days before we take on Hibs in the Scottish Cup. So no easy draw, absolutely. It's certainly not the hardest draw. A Milan or someone like that would have been a real challenge. Their fans' reaction seems to be similar to ours, which is that we'll do well to get through. And I think it'll be a relatively even thing. I think we'll have a tough time out in Portugal. I think if we can keep it to within one goal, we bring it back to Ibrox and we see what Ibrox can do on a European night. On a European late afternoon is more appropriate. But I don't think it's a bad draw. I think it gives us a reasonable chance of getting through. But you get to this last 16 of Europe yet again. There's no easy draws.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. We should never take for granted playing European football after Christmas. Never take that for granted, because it doesn't feel that long ago our manager was standing in a hedge in Luxembourg trying to explain to us why we'd just been hammered and stuck out.
Not just after Christmas, after Valentine's Day, after Pancake Day. It's it just goes on and on, doesn't it?
Yeah. So no. You're looking forward to it, Scott. Is that? I know a lot of people. I've heard a lot of people say, you know what, Europe's not our priority this season. This season it's the league. Is Europe a distraction? How do you feel about the draw?
I'm excited about it. Like, as you were saying as well, like Rangers in Europe after Christmas is like, what more could you want? I'm excited by it. It'll be very tough as well, because Benfica are a very good side. They've got Di Maria, who's a tremendous player as well. He only ever had one bad stint, and that was at Manchester United. He's still in his prime. So yeah, of course
he can't be in his prime. I mean, he's
still brilliant. He's still brilliant. He's still top class in my opinion. But obviously the kickoff time's an inconvenience, of course. But obviously, I said this in the podcast yesterday with Craig, but it's like, obviously it might benefit the players, maybe, because obviously it's an earlier kickoff. Then if the game finishes at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever, just might have a wee bit more time to rest or whatever. So maybe it'll benefit the players, but of course it is frustrating, the fact that it's going to be kicking off at 5:45, and obviously it is annoying for us, the fans. But it'll be an interesting tie. But for me, if Rangers do go out in the last 16, it wouldn't be the end of the world, because Europe this season for me is a bonus, because there's no way I would have expected us to make the last 16 or even the 32. Like, I did not expect that at all, right? I would have been totally content with the conference, but the fact that we're in this position now it's nice, it's great. But for me, obviously, the league has to. That's a priority. That's what we all want now.
Yeah, after the Limassol game, you were thinking, well,
just write it
Europe over for this season. So yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. Actually, there is something about European football that and in all honesty, I like the Europa League. Europa League, I feel, is our level. I know it's great. I know we want to get into the Champions League. To test yourself against the best teams. But I do think that unfortunately think that Europe is kind of 2-tier now.
Oh yeah, and also
it's nice to be at the top end of the second tier, which I think is
100% as well. And 100%, John. And also Rangers are a different animal in Europa League. Like, we just turn it a totally different team. So, like, I honestly, whoever comes to Ibrox, we don't fear them in Europa League. We've got that. Like, it's like Ibrox is an intimidating place to go, and Benfica will be worried, because obviously when we played them 3 years ago, it was during COVID, no fans were there. But now they're going to experience the Ibrox atmosphere. So, yeah, like, I fancy our chances, honestly. Like, I would take anyone at Ibrox, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. Scott, staying with you, from the wonderful, heady evenings of Europa League football, from the sublime to the ridiculous, we're going to Rugby Park on Wednesday, and their horrific pitch that they have. Kilmarnock are in good form. They're having a decent season. Derek McInnes has been building a squad there, and as he did at Aberdeen, as he did at St Johnstone. He's been given a little bit of time, and he's building something there. They're having a good season. They obviously got a very good result in Glasgow a couple of weeks back, and from what I hear, a not undeserved result. He has history with putting out teams that know how to beat us. He did it a few times with Aberdeen. The Rugby Park it's not a pleasant place to play football. It won't suit us. It won't suit the type of football we play. Did we approach this game with any trepidation, Scott?
Well, basically every game that we're going into, John, I'm nervous for it. Like every game in my opinion's like a cup final. But yeah, I think going into it, we just need to be relentless. We need to, right from the word go, just go at Kilmarnock, because Derek McInnes, I do rate him as a manager. 7 years ago, I actually wanted Derek McInnes to become the Rangers manager. But obviously, they're going to sit in deep. They're going to try and frustrate us. And they've been brilliant the last few games. I think they're 7 games unbeaten. I think their last defeat came from us, obviously, at Ibrox. And if Rangers get past that on Wednesday night against Kilmarnock, that'll be a big statement, along with the Hearts result as well, because going to Rugby Park is a very tough place to go. And as you said, that pitch is horrible. All plastic pitches are horrible, in my opinion. But obviously the first league game of the season, Kilmarnock beat us. So Derek McInnes knows how to beat us, and he knows how to play against the Old Firm. And obviously Kilmarnock, as we were saying, they're flying right now. They're having a good season, and they'll go into this game excited. They'll go into this game very confident, because they're like, we beat Rangers before, we beat Celtic at Rugby Park, we went to Park Ken and got a point. There's no reason why we can't get a double over Rangers here. So, yeah, I'm nervous about it, but I do fancy Rangers to get the 3 points. But, like, Kilmarnock just needs to be relentless right from the get-go. Just need to go at them, because Kilmarnock they'll be looking to frustrate us and hit us on that counter-attack and get that goal. So, yeah, it will be a tough one. But, yeah, if Rangers get through that, then the confidence and excitement with Rangers, like, as it is now, it's just going to increase.
The early goal could be important on Wednesday night. Ross, you touched upon this earlier, and it was an interesting stat. I hadn't heard that particular stat about the number of changes that Clement makes, because trying to guess his lineup in advance is something of a fool's errand. So let's make fools of ourselves on the pod and try and guess the starting lineup. Do you see many changes going into this game, and if so, who?
Do I see many changes? Probably, because that's what he does. And if we can't guess, then Derek McInnes will have a hard time guessing, which is a good thing. Yeah. Let's think about the areas of the pitch that are up for grabs. So Campbell's dropped out, obviously due to injury. Does Tom Lawrence keep his spot? I think he probably will, as he was, he's taken off a wee bit early yesterday. Thought he performed pretty well yesterday. A couple of slack passes here and there, but on the whole, had a good performance.
Really good game yesterday.
There is the option of Fabio Silva maybe playing in that role, behind playing off Cyril Dessers. I think he'll probably actually drop Dessers to the bench and start Silva. I think
because just that's what he's tended to do. If one starts one week, the other one starts the next game.
Exactly. I wouldn't be surprised to see Ross McCausland, because again, he came on at the weekend for 20, 25 minutes, whatever it was. So I think we'll see some changes, but it's so hard to predict. I do think he'll probably stick with Goldson and Suter. I think Suter's, the last few games has really proven himself and has been a lot more consistent than maybe he has been at other times.
Left back, who do you think's starting at left back?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think Ridvan played extremely well yesterday, and I've
best game for Rangers yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I've not been a massive fan of his. I think he can be really sloppy in possession. I think he's the kind of guy that kind of nutmegs someone, runs 20 yards, and then passes it to the wrong guy or makes the wrong decision. But I thought he played phenomenally well yesterday, so I'd like to see him retain that starting spot. I think the bits that are kind of up for grabs, let's say. Diomande in the centre of the park played well yesterday, got his goal. I think he'll probably start. Yeah, Cortez, McCausland, it's Fabio Silva, Cyril Dessers. There's some kind of jiggery pokery to be done there.
Yeah, there'll definitely be some changes there'll definitely be some changes, I think, and a bit like you, I'm not entirely sure what they'll be. Well, tell you what's nice is that we're all looking forward to it. The next Rangers game can't come quick enough, and that's something that we weren't all saying earlier on this season. So that seems like a good note to finish tonight's show. So if I could just thank, oh, there you go. She's done well tonight, but eventually she did need to bark. She's probably just disappointed that we're no longer going to, the show's not going to go on. She's I hear that she's delighted because she's getting her walk. One of the two. So listen, I just need to thank Ross for joining us. He was having a bad hair day, in case you're wondering why he's wearing that hat. He was having a bad hair day. I'm just jealous that you can have a bad hair day. And Scott, as well, it's good of you to join us from your kitchen. I was just waiting for your cleaner to come around the background there, start tidying up, but you've been left in peace tonight, so that's good news. So guys, appreciate you giving up your Sunday night to join us. Just everybody who's listening, you can obviously get the pod, you can get old pods, you can get the next ones that are coming out on a variety of platforms: Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, and Spotify. There will be or certainly planning to be a podcast on Friday night with Brian and Stuart, so don't miss that. They'll look back on the game with Kilmarnock, and no doubt do a preview of the next weekend's game. I suspect there will be probably a post-match reaction pod from Alec. So again, just keep an eye on Frankie's social media feeds. Tune in to or subscribe to YouTube, and that will come up. And lastly, I just thank you for your time tonight, and have a good week.